So I want to begin tonight just to say to you that this mind is full of ignorant thoughts. It's absolutely true. And I know it's true because I am dissatisfied with the way things are. And I know there is ignorance because this dissatisfaction has led to experiencing its consequence, which is suffering. This level of being dissatisfied essentially means I'm not accepting in my heart mind that things are as they are. And it's important to remember here that acceptance does not mean approving or liking. It simply means non-judgmental awareness of what is. It means that I'm arguing with reality. We want things to be solid, safe, and predictable. This is always unsuccessful, of course, because of the truth of impermanence. So of what am I dissatisfied? And really, I could keep you all here for hours, just cross my, what am I? But I'll try and keep it to a few. It's a long list, but there are some things that arise to my consciousness on a recurring loop of unhappiness. And recently, the bitter cold has been one. So today has been such a blessing. The last few days have felt just absolutely glorious. And with this dissatisfaction with the weather, it's reflective in my heart mind of the story of changing climate. I have many thoughts that weave into stories about how it's not supposed to be this cold here. It's like this because of what we humans have done or are doing. And humans are uncaring and destructive. Another area of which I'm quite dissatisfied is our cultural and political environment. There is a culture of us and them. And to my eyes, this is being stoked and elevated by leaders, media, and social media. Recently, what seemed like a momentum towards kindness and well-being feels like it's getting torn back. Bullying and fear-mongering seem to be emboldened. So with a heart full of transparency, I will admit the latest election did not go as I wanted it to. And what has come to mind for me is the image of a butterfly in a cocoon. I can see its beautiful colored wings through the delicate, thin enclosure. The butterfly represents the world I want to live in. A world of justice, kindness, wisdom, and compassion. I thought for sure it was ready to emerge. As I said earlier, I'm dissatisfied with the way things are. So now what? What is the next step? And the next? Do I indulge in anger at them? Those who chose differently than I? Do I fall into hatred of those who I perceive as selfish, narcissistic leaders? I'm sad to say those moments have arisen. Do I tell myself I'm not allowed to be angry, not allowed to feel sad, that I must have only compassion and patience with those with whom I do not agree? I'm not sure that would be authentic and may actually be a bit of spiritual bypassing. What about retreating, pulling back into my privilege and choosing to not watch the news, to not talk to anyone about politics? I could just focus on what is right in front of me. Are any of these the wrong choice? Is there a right and wrong choice? This is where I take refuge, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And of course, the middle way. The mind wants to have a reason to understand all this. Why? Why couldn't I have my butterfly? Make this make sense. This is grasping. Grasping leads to suffering. Wanting things to be different than they are and demanding an explanation as to why I didn't get what I wanted. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson says, "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you." And yet, of course, there is a reason. If we pause and let go of grasping and allow ourselves to inquire without so much attachment, we may see things we did not see before. As a matter of fact, there are more reasons than we can possibly know or count. And these reasons are interwoven in dependent origination. This happens because that happens. And generations of karmic activity. We are here in this moment because of everything that has ever come before, including the actions of everyone who has come before. That is the reason. But narrowing our lens of inquiry further, it seems to me that our current cultural environment is in a state of backdraft. The psychologist and co-founder of the Mindful Self-Compassion program, Chris Germer, teaches about the concept of backdraft. Backdraft occurs when there is a fire in a room and someone opens the door, letting oxygen from the outside in. It makes contact with the fire that has been contained behind a closed door, and boom. The fire that may have been small and simmering explodes out of the room. In the self-compassion program, this metaphor describes how we have rooms within us in which we try and contain painful things. We keep them locked up with the hopes they will go away. When we begin to practice self-compassion, frequently we make contact with those rooms within us. Sometimes we open the door too quickly and can get burned by the flames of what we've tried to hide for so long. The invitation in self-compassion is to touch in little by little until the flames are less intense and can be held with compassion. Perhaps as a culture, we've been doing this as well. We have years of generational karmic trauma that we have tried to suppress. Years of harming other humans and the environment. Years of whitewashing these events and years of not addressing these painful karmic patterns. But like our trapped individual pain, they do not go away. They remain simmering, impacting us just under the surface. The butterfly world that I wanted so much cannot come without dealing with those underlying cultural traumas. I think we started to try. We began to touch the doors, even open them some. Sometimes out of necessity, we even flew the doors open. Unfortunately, we have not been able to do the slow work of healing those wounds. That was needed to keep the fire from exploding out. So perhaps the teachings of the Buddha can help us to understand why, as a culture, humans have not been able to address these generational wounds. The Buddha taught of the three poisons: greed, clinging and grasping, hatred, aversion and pushing away, and delusion, ignorance, and clouded perceptions. They existed 2,500 years ago, and they are still part of humanity today. And ignorance feeds them all. Ignorance of the truth of things. What access do most people have to the fundamental wisdom of Dharma, of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path? Even just the ability to self-reflect and inquire into what is real and true. John Kabat-Zinn, in Wherever You Go, There You Are, says, without some grounding in mindfulness as a reliable way of being in wise relationship to experiences, whatever they might be, inner or outer, pleasant, unpleasant, or neither, we can all too easily get caught up and stuck in the feeling, tone, and momentum coming out of a past moment with no clue to our own imprisonment and thus no way out. He goes on to say the present moment is never a new beginning only because we keep it from becoming one. And here's Thich Nhat Hanh quoting his friend, Professor Kung, in the book Living Buddha, Living Christ, on the impact of clinging to our thoughts and beliefs. He said, until there is peace between religions, there can be no peace in the world. People kill and are killed because they cling too tightly to their own beliefs and ideologies. When we believe that ours is the only faith that contains truth, violence and suffering will surely be the result. And ignorance is fed in humans by the experience of unmet needs. People are searching for a way to feel okay, to feel safe in a world that's becoming less predictable and more intense. We are bombarded by bad news constantly, and the earth, that which has been the foundation of our lives, is now unpredictable and destabilizing. Our karma, which is the accumulation of our actions, thoughts, and intentions over time, is interwoven with everyone else's because we enter our. So Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump are living their karma. And their karma impacts ours. So what makes karma different from the idea of fate is that we can make choices to work with and change our karma. We can choose our next step wisely once we practice mindful awareness and see things as they are, non-judgmentally and with acceptance. With that same non-judging acceptance and mindful awareness, we can see that there really is no us and them. There is just everything. There is just everything in all of us, in our karmic existence, with our perceptions of unmet needs fed by ignorance. There is just everything in all of us, in our karmic existence, with our perceptions, what we perceive and think is true, fed by unmet needs, fed by ignorance. The Dalai Lama was asked if he held any anger towards the Chinese at one point. He replied, "They have taken everything from us. Should I let them take my mind as well?" And this from Dr. Martin Luther King: "Don't let them get you to hate them." How shall we be? How shall we be going forward? Notice I'm saying be and not what shall we do. How shall we be? Well, one option is to take refuge in the Dharma. Let's come home. Let's come home to the foundations, the Four Noble Truths, and the Eightfold Path. Thich Nhat Hanh shared these thoughts in The Art of Living. If it were not for my Dharma body, if it were not for my practice of mindfulness, I would never have been able to overcome the great difficulties, pain, and despair I have faced in my life. I have endured wars and violence. My country was divided. My society and Buddhist community were wrought apart. And we encountered so much discrimination, hatred, and despair. It is thanks to my Dharma body that I have been able to survive, and not only survive, but overcome all these difficulties and grow and transform through them. Let's take refuge in the Buddha. Connect to the Buddha within. If you find yourself in moments of overwhelm, hopelessness, or despair, rest back into your own heart. Try that now. Rest back. Can you touch into compassion there? Does love live in the heart? Touch into these. Rest in them. Savor and care for them. Because if you can find them in your heart, you know they exist in this world. Love and compassion exist in this world because you exist in this world. Care for those seeds. They matter to all of us. Thich Nhat Hanh said, the Buddha is still here. Each one of us can be in direct contact with the Buddha as a kind of action. We are the continuation of the Buddha. In one of his Dharma talks on the Plum Village app, Thich Nhat Hanh tells a story of being surrounded by many people on a morning walk in a large city. There were so many people that he could not move. So he closed his eyes and breathed and told himself, let the Buddha walk. Then he began to move again, connected to the Buddha within, and people moved out of his way. Let the Buddha walk. Let the Buddha breathe. Try that. Let the Buddha drive the car and read the news and interact with others. Many of us are familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings, encouraging us to be the calm one on the boat who sits rather than panics, so the boat does not tip into the sea. The calm, still, embodied presence is contagious. Be the calm one in the boat. Take your seat with dignity, strength, and compassion. Take your seat. To do this, we must care for ourselves. We can use mindful inquiry to check in with ourselves. What is here to be known? What am I thinking and believing? What emotions are present and where do they reside in the body? Is this first arrow pain or second arrow suffering? The fires of life are hot and can burn. Those are unavoidable to experience and can be hard. The stories we add on top of those painful fires cause suffering. How we respond to the pain of the fire and the stories of the fire are different. One requires our compassionate care. The other requires wisdom and letting go. discerning what is pain and what is suffering, fear or anxiety, sadness or despair. None are wrong to feel. They just require a different response from us. In those moments of overwhelm, which is when the body-mind cannot clearly discern a wholesome next step, I learned from my self-compassion training that it's okay to close, to pull back into the cocoon and rest. If this is done with awareness and the intent to care for self, it is a wholesome thing to do. If you're drowning, you're not any help to anyone else. Do you want others to jump in and drown with you? Or do you want them to be on solid ground and help you get out? Of course, it's a privilege to close. Use that privilege if you can to help others. And don't lose sight of joy and the blessings of life. Is it okay to feel joy in these difficult times? I think so. Despair and depression become what we share with the world otherwise. We can feel sad and be awed by a beautiful sky. We can feel angry and full of love for others. The world needs our love and our joy. Mindful awareness helps us to know if we are numbing or engaging in spiritual bypassing, or if we're taking time to heal. Again, from John Kabat-Zinn, it is only by being fully in this moment that any future moment might be one of greater understanding, clarity, and kindness, one less dominated by fear or hurt, anger or resentment, and more by dignity and wise acceptance of things as they are. He goes on to say, only what happens now happens later. If there's no mindfulness or equanimity or compassion now, then the only time we have ever to invite them in and nourish ourselves with their energies, how likely is it that it will magically appear later under stress or duress? Let the Buddha inside connect to the value of patience. Things unfold in their own time. You can't speak butterfly to caterpillar. I saw that quote somewhere and I just loved that. Remembering that being a butterfly is not better than being a caterpillar. It's just a different place on the path. Ignorance is not a character flaw. And how about we take refuge in Sangha? I'm going to invite you just to look around. Drink in the strength and wisdom and care surrounding you. And maybe close your eyes and bring to mind those you love. Those who support you. Your community. Maybe rest back into the knowledge that you are not alone. You are never completely alone. And love, with the awareness of connection to all that is never somewhere else. It is you. The author, Anne Lamott, wrote this in her book entitled Somehow, Thoughts on Love. She says, "Are love and compassion up to the stark realities we face at the dinner table and down the street and at the melting ice caps or within Iranian nuclear plants and the White House? Maybe. I think so. Somehow. Love's loss is the source of most suffering, and then love transforms the suffering into depth, compassion, and the great painful gift of humility. I never loved this. One day at a time, and sometimes 1 hour at a time, love will be enough to see us through, get us back on our feet, and dust us off. Love gives us a shot at becoming the person we were born to be, not the charming actor or bodyguard we became, not us on our tightropes holding our breath as we strive for greatness, or at any rate, not falling on our butts. When all is said and done, and against all odds, love is sufficient unto the day. Could I be wrong? Obviously, but I don't think I am. Love is what our soul is made of and for. Love is a piece of toast and a diamond. It is a sturdy and imperfect shelter all around, and deep inside, a lantern with warm, bracing light, a magician. When life has lost its promise or disappointed us one too many times, when it's hard to trust again or feel alive and curious again, love beckons us over and asks, "Got a minute?" Those are powerful for me. That's why I wanted to share. When I don't have answers to fix anything. Obviously, who does? But I love this invitation to connect just within you. I don't know if you all could feel that, but when I invite the Buddha and let the Buddha take the dog outside that's been chewing on her leash for the last, that's much better than the one who's like, "Oh my God, stop doing." So anyway, may we all walk in peace and joy. May we hold our seats, and may we be a blessing to all of those around us. Thank you.